Hello everyone, this is Miss Mara and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, I make educational videos as well as Dom DIYs, travel vlogs, and many more things. So check those playlists out after this video. I have 3 membership tiers here on YouTube. You can also check that out on my About page. And don't forget that I have a monthly newsletter on my website, dominamara.com. That lets you know what my travel plans are, as well as events that I'm hosting in a city near you. Don't forget to subscribe to my social media, Mara Domina, for daily news and juicy updates. Okay, so I'm making this video because I got a lot of questions and a lot of misinformation that people were spouting in the comments after I posted my Femboy collaboration with Foxy Alex. And so I want to kind of verbalize what each of these terms are so that people can be clear about what each of them are and not misuse the terms, because sometimes it can be very hurtful to people when you don't use the appropriate vocabulary. So feminization is the overall umbrella of dressing or appreciating all the things that are feminine. So usually that means pink, bows, soft plushy things, pastel colors, and of course there's a lot of variation in what this can mean, because you could go the goth route. With fashion, there's a bunch of different styles that you can embody, but the overall immediate thought that people have is that type of look. Okay, so feminization can be for any gender. It can even be for non-binary people, because the fact that they don't identify as a feminine person but appreciate it and dress like it is still under feminization. I know it can get confusing, so bear with me as I go through all of the different aspects that I want to talk about today. After that, we also have sissification versus femboy. We have the term femboy, which is what I have titled my last 2 videos, and then sissification and forced feminization. So femboy is a cis male, but it doesn't really have to be any actual cis male gender, but usually it is cis male, and they dress up and are inspired by female everything. Clothing, female actions, hair, nails, makeup, and the whole look, right? This doesn't necessarily have to include domination at all. In fact, it's more of like a lifestyle and a stylistic choice rather than play per se. You can role play as a femboy, and that's kind of where it starts getting in this gray area with the other categories. Sissification is different because that is literally somebody putting themselves in a feminized look or having a dominant person do that. So there's already a power exchange, which is different. It's also more in the kink lifestyle rather than the aesthetic lifestyle, where somebody is bound to degrade or humiliate said sissy for liking feminine things. So if it's usually a female in power who is chastising, and I use that word because sometimes that also includes chastity devices where they're locked up so that they can fully embody what it's like to be a submissive sissy. You don't have to add chastity to that play, but it's just another level of humiliation while doing that. Role play can also be included in sissification, especially with maids and service, because a lot of sissies like to dress up in the frilly maid outfits, clean the house, and become human furniture. And there's levels to human furniture as well that we're not going to get into today that take away the identity at the end of the day, even though they're dressed in femme clothes. So there's a lot to unpackage there. Forced feminization is another layer on top of that, where a dominant will literally force the sissy to wear certain things and then degrade and punish them, etc. Any combination of those things. And sometimes that includes ruined O's. So let's say they're taken out of chastity, you know, they like being humiliated and that turns them on, then the dominant gets to decide whether or not they can release or not, or get put back in a cage, or just be shoved in a corner and left there because that's how insignificant they are, even dressed as a sissy. I also want to talk about identity, and I know we went over that a little bit with Foxy Alex, but femboys and sissies are not trans people. People who actually identify themselves by their gender, whether that is non-binary, which means they are not any one thing, or they're gender fluid, you know, it depends on who they're with and what they feel like at the time. It might not even be a human form. Some people might see themselves more ethereal or more animalistic, but elements of those things can still adapt gender. And I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again because I feel like it's really important. Trans people, that is their identity. And so if they're going through a transition from a cis looking persona that they once were into something else, whether it's hormones or dressing differently, shaving. Some people don't even go through an entire full surgery because it's a lot and it's complicated, and the human body can only do so much at certain times. Maybe there's body complications. It's also really expensive. So unless it really, really means that much to them, usually people take hormones and do maybe facial reconstruction, but trans people are their own people. And remember, they are also people. I just want to reiterate that and how each of these categories are different. I personally don't like labels, but for the sake of this educational video, I want to make sure that everybody has clear understanding of what each of these things is. So, you know how there's feminization? Well, in the female world, there's also like queer people who are more tomboyish. And if they're lesbian or like bisexual, but female leaning, we usually call them femme masculine or just masc because they are masculine presenting. So on the female side, that's kind of what it looks like as well, right? You see cis females who don't wear the makeup, they wear baggy clothes, they kind of act more like a dude, and that's totally okay, and that's their identity, and that's also not anyone pretending to be a tomboy or feminine masc. That's who they are. I feel like a general rule of thumb is if you don't know what someone's identity is, or even if you see the aesthetic, you can't necessarily assume that they are femboy or that they're into sissification. You need to ask. And this is where in kink negotiation is super important, because you're never gonna know fully what somebody's comfortable with and like what it is that identifies them as a person, even through play, unless you ask, right? You have a checklist of things that, okay, what is it that you're comfortable with? What is it that you're comfortable being called? You know, because some people are offended by sissification, and that's totally okay. Some people don't think femboy is a real thing. They just think that it's something that people call because they don't know what else to call them. You know, some people think femboy and sissy are the same thing. And so that's why I'm making this video, is to kind of like specify what each of these things are. If you have any more questions, feel free to write them down below. I hope this kind of answers everybody's like thoughts on it. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you know when I have new content out. I post every Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, or I live stream. Go ahead and follow my social media at Mara Domina. I have 3 membership tiers here on YouTube. Go check those out. And until next time, keep it kinky, everyone.